Gabrielle is an agriculture agent at Fulton County's Extension Office. She's an entomologist by training and is interested in insects on farms and in gardens, and is passionate about closing the gap between people and their food. Gabrielle oversees the North Fulton County Community Garden, answers clients' questions about gardening and natural resources, works with urban farmers. She helps coordinate Fulton County's Master Gardener Extension volunteer program, and she delivers educational programs for Fulton's residents and Kelly's residents.
Yes,
Thank
exactly.
you so much. Welcome, Gabrielle Latoro.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. Am I on?
You're on.
Okay. Is the volume good? Y'all can hear me okay? All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Gabrielle Latora. I am the ag agent in Fulton County. Actually, we have 2 ag agents in Fulton. So I'm one of 2, but I am an entomologist by training, and I'm very passionate about insects. The reason that I got into insects in the first place was because I started working on a farm right out of college. I had taken an entomology class in my last semester that I didn't do well in, but it sort of sparked an interest in bugs. And then when I got out on the farm, I saw all these bugs everywhere doing cool stuff with the plants, interacting with plants, interacting with people, and it sparked a lifelong interest. So now I'm back interested in farming, but I'm also interested in insects in landscapes and in gardens. So I really appreciate y'all having me. And I'm gonna talk today about one of my favorite topics, which I call insect allies. These are gonna be our predator insects and our parasitoids that help keep our pest insects down. So before I get into the PowerPoint, actually, maybe I wanna go forward. I'm gonna go over what natural enemies are. This is sort of a catch-all term that we use. We're gonna go over some common predators and parasitoids that you would see in your garden. Not so you can memorize them, just so you can get a little bit familiar with some, common friends that you might see out there. And then we're gonna talk about how you can conserve natural enemies. Hopefully by that point you will also like them like I do and want to conserve them, so we will see. But I wanna do a little temperature check. And if somebody could turn on the lights just for a second for me. Thank you. I want to know how y'all feel about insects. So just shout out like some adjectives that you would use to describe insects or how you feel about them. Pollinators. Pollinators, okay. Sorry, I have a skinny pen. How else would y'all describe insects?
Balance.
Balance, okay.
They're necessary.
Did you say pest? Okay, and necessary. What else comes to mind?
Well, I love bugs, but lots of people would say creepy.
Creepy. Thank you for representing those people. Those feelings are valid. And I'm somebody who didn't grow up liking bugs. I discovered insects later in life, so I'm still kind of getting over some of those creepy feelings. Annoying, yes, they are. Some are very annoying. Any other feelings that arise when you hear insects? Interesting. I heard something over there.
I said they're beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay, well that gives me a good sort of temperature check of the room. Y'all are pretty positive on insects, I like that. I'm gonna do this again at the end just to see if any feelings have changed. Just sort of curious. All right, let's get back into the presentation. All right, so this term natural enemies is sort of a catch-all, thank you, that includes 2 big categories, predators and parasitoids. Predators are going to be insects that capture and eat another insect, which we refer to as the prey, the unfortunate prey. So that would be something like a praying mantis is what's the word? I'm blanking on the word for a praying mantis, but they sit and wait in camouflage until something happens by, and then they grab them and eat them. Then we've got parasitoids. These are insects that develop inside or on the outside of another insect, which we refer to as the host. Something unique about parasitoids is that host insect usually dies in the process of the parasitoid's development. So you might be familiar with this other category, parasites, which are related to parasitoids. They also develop in or on another insect, but the host usually does not die in the process. The reason that this distinction is important is because we want to promote predators and parasitoids in our landscapes, because through these interactions where they're eating or killing another insect, they're suppressing our pest insects in most cases. Parasites, because they're not killing their hosts, really aren't, I mean, they're out there, they're great, you know, another trophic level for us, but we're interested in insects that are gonna keep our pest insects down. Also, parasites just aren't super common in the insect world. Parasitoids are much more common. So you might hear like parasitoid wasps referred to as parasitic wasps. Technically, that's not right, but it's okay. So if y'all wanna refer to them as parasites, that's okay. I just wanna use the correct terminology. Has anybody ever seen, I don't know if I have a pointer on here. Oh. You never know when you're pressing buttons. I don't know where it is.
So it's,
Oh, this one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody seen one of these? Yes. Okay, cool. So we're gonna talk about this a little bit later. All right. So from now on, I'm gonna refer to these guys as natural enemies. I might make some distinctions, but in general, that's the term that we're gonna use. So I wanna go through some common ones that you might see in the garden. Wasps are up first because they're probably my favorite. I am scared of them sometimes, but I try to, you know, I'm still getting over that creepiness factor for myself, but they are absolutely amazing. So I wanted to put them first to really spend a lot of time talking about them. We've got a couple big categories of wasps that I want to talk about. The first is going to be social wasps. These are the ones that you probably are most familiar with, things like paper wasps, bald-faced hornets, yellow jackets, and social wasps, like their name implies, live in a family group. They live in a big aggregation of other insects in their family, and because of that, they can often be aggressive because they want to defend that family unit, that nest. That's where all of their family lives, and so they're willing to sting you and potentially risk getting killed for the betterment of protecting that nest. They are great pollinators and natural enemies, so they are good, but they can be aggressive. So when people call into the extension office and they're like, I've got a paper wasp nest near my house, they're flying around dive bombing us, I might suggest that they do something to control them if they want to, but I also highlight their ecological benefits too. The second category is solitary wasps. So unlike our social wasps, solitary wasps live alone. The males and females live independently. They don't live in big family groups. It's each individual wasp for themselves. They might all nest in a similar area because the resources are appropriate there, but the one female is building her one individual nest. She's not caring for a big group. Nobody's caring for her. Because of that, female solitary wasps are much less likely to be aggressive. I know that I'm kind of anthropomorphizing them a little bit, but that's what the biology says, that they are not willing to risk being able to provide for their offspring, for that one female's offspring, by stinging you and potentially getting smushed. The vast majority of wasps that we see in our landscapes are solitary wasps. You know, probably the social wasps we see them more because they like to build their nests near our homes, but in the garden, we're gonna be seeing a lot more species of solitary wasps, and they're very, very diverse. So just keep that in mind. They really are not interested in you. They're not really interested in defending their nest. They're just interested in collecting resources for their young. So these would be things like mud daubers. This is a ground nesting wasp. We've got potter wasps that dig up mud and build these little nesting pots. thread-waisted wasps, lots of digger wasps. There's all types. And they're going to be building their nests like in an old stump or a down tree. They might use a hollow stem from an old plant that's in your landscape. They might go dig a hole. They might collect some of this mud and build some kind of structure. So they're occupying all types of different ecological niches in the garden and in the landscape. Then we've got parasitoid wasps. Huge diversity in this group, but, oh, thank you. Their MO is that rather than, and you know what, I skipped something. These wasps are good in the landscape because they're going out foraging for pests to feed to their offspring. So has anybody ever seen a wasp like flying around with a caterpillar? Nobody's ever, has anybody? Okay, keep your eye out. Now that I said that, you're gonna see it. It's very common. So these wasps will fly around. They lay their eggs and their larvae are in some nest somewhere, you know, in a hole or in this pot or in their nesting structure. The wasps fly around foraging for mostly caterpillars, but other types of pest insects also. They carry them back to the nest where they feed them to their developing larvae. So for these, the solitary wasps, they might have like one or a few larvae in this hole, and that's all the offspring that they're gonna have for that season. Okay, so they're flying around gathering prey to feed to the offspring. The adult wasps don't usually feed on the prey. What the adult wasps are doing is they're flying around from flower to flower to flower, collecting nectar, collecting pollen that's sort of like high in carbohydrates, high in protein, and that's the energy that they need to carry a caterpillar around. Like, can you imagine being the size of a wasp and carrying around like, you know, a tomato hornworm or something? So you need like an insect Red Bull, which is what flowers are. And what happens when a wasp is flying from flower to flower to flower collecting pollen? They're pollinating, exactly. They don't know that they're pollinating, they're just feeding. But so they are great pollinators for that reason as well. Okay, now I can talk about parasitoids. Unlike other wasps that are predators, they're feeding on insects, parasitoid wasps are using other insects to complete their development, to complete their life cycle. So these wasps are going to be laying their eggs in or on another insect. They are solitary. So I know I have them as separate categories, but parasitoid wasps don't live in a big colony. They're not social. They're individual solitary wasps. So the example I'm going to talk about here is our tomato hornworm. Y'all said you have seen these wasp pupae. They're not eggs, they're pupal casings. And actually the tomato hornworm has at least 2 parasitoids in Georgia that we know of. They have Trichogramma species, that's this type of wasp genus. And what she's doing is she's flying around looking for the egg of the tomato hornworm. So before the tomato hornworm hatches, you know, the moth lays this egg, and so this Trichogramma wasp is flying around looking for this egg. And what she's doing here, she's using her ovipositor, that's the insect egg-laying organ that's kind of shaped like a lance. She's piercing this egg and laying her egg inside of the tomato hornworm egg. The wasp egg hatches into a larva. We remember our metamorphosis, right? And the larva of the wasp feeds on the inside of the egg while it goes through its different molts until it's ready to pupate. In that feeding process, it's killing this egg. This egg is never going to hatch into the larval form of this moth, the tomato hornworm. Okay, so in that way, Trichogramma, they're controlling tomato hornworms right from the jump with this egg stage. Cotesia congregata is a completely other species that infects the larval form. Okay, so they're flying around looking for the caterpillars. And what she does is she takes her ovipositor and pierces this caterpillar like all over its body. It's kind of gruesome. But she's laying her eggs inside the body of this caterpillar. The same thing happens. The wasp eggs hatch inside the caterpillar. They feed on the body of the caterpillar until they're ready to tunnel out, form this pupal casing, this cocoon, and then they pupate in there. They have this dramatic transformation into an adult wasp. And actually, if you look close, you can see the little tops have been popped off of these cocoons. So that means that these wasps successfully pupated and they flew away as adults. So it also means that this one teeny tiny wasp laid all these eggs inside of this caterpillar, usually at the same time. Like she's crawling around laying egg after egg after egg. So sadly, this caterpillar doesn't have very long left on this earth. It's on the way out, even if it's still kind of hanging on. So if you see a caterpillar that looks like this with these pupal casings, just leave it alone. If you kill it, you're also going to kill all of these wasps that are sort of helping you control tomato hornworms in your garden. There's a crazy range of sizes when it comes to parasitoid wasps. The smallest insect that we know of on Earth is a parasitoid wasp. This is not a picture of it. This is just the smallest picture that I could find of a wasp. But the smallest fairy flies, you have to look at them under a microscope. That's how small they are, and they are parasitoid wasps. I think that they parasitize like lice, book lice eggs or something. I can't remember. Also, we have huge parasitoid wasps, like the giant ichneumon wasp that can get up to 4 inches long. So what she is doing, she's flying around listening for beetle larvae that are tunneling inside this tree. So she's hearing their vibrations, and then she takes this super long ovipositor and she drills into the bark of the tree and lays her egg directly into the larva of a beetle that's inside of the tree. And they're like massive. Also, not aggressive. Again, they are solitary wasps, and they're often highly specialized with their host. So like, these two species are only looking for tomato hornworms. They're not looking for any other type of insect. And so often, parasitoid wasps are specialized to one small group of insects or one specific species. So they're not interested in us. You know, they don't care about us. Often, their ovipositors are not even used for stinging. They're used for like doing this highly specialized activity. So they are very cool. Beetles are another huge category. I don't know if y'all know this. I got this book from Art Evans recently, he's a beetle entomologist who's very well known, and he just put out a book on beetles I'm very stoked on. But this graph was in this book, and it shows the number of species. I know it's teeny tiny, but the number of species of beetles that we have described on Earth is more than all the species of plants and algae that we have described on Earth. Did y'all know that? Just beetles, not all insects, just beetles. There's more species of beetles described than plants and algae. I thought that was crazy. So, a crazy variety of beetles in general, but lady beetles in particular, I'm sure y'all know, are our friends in the garden, right? But there's a huge variety of lady beetles out there. They all have sort of this general shape as adults, round. They're either, say again?
Volkswagen.
Yep, like a Volkswagen, exactly. They're often spotted, but not always. They might be red, orange, pink, yellow, some sort of warm color usually. The larvae, a lot of people know what the larvae look like. I like to say that they look like little alligators. But I do get a lot of photos coming into my email in the office where people are like, what is this bug that's all over my plants? And I'm like, that's a ladybug larvae. Like, they're good. We like them. We like them because the adults and the larvae are both predators in general. There are lady beetles that feed on foliage that are pests, but a lot of species, the adults and the larvae, are both generalist predators. So they're going to be feeding on lots of different types of bugs. So we've got stuff like the 7-spotted lady beetle here in Georgia, the convergent lady beetle. Obviously this one's gonna have 7 spots. I don't know how many spots convergent has. You can see this larva is feeding on some poor aphids, which, you know, so sad. We've got the multicolored Asian lady beetle. This is the species that gets inside your house. It's an introduced species, but it is a predator in the garden, so yeah, give or take. We've got the spotted lady beetle. I saw a bunch of these on a pumpkin vine that I had in my garden last year, and they are hot pink. I don't know if anyone's ever seen these. I was like, whoa, that's a hot pink lady beetle. This one is feeding on some Colorado potato beetle eggs. So we like that. And then we've got little tiny lady beetles like the spider mite destroyer. And yeah, you can tell from its name, it's probably eating mites on the underside of a leaf, but it's black and it's teeny tiny. So some of them can specialize. We've got lots of other types of beetles too, including ground beetles. This is another huge family of beetles, the carabids. They are nocturnal, and you'll find them on the ground mostly feeding under leaf litter on things like grubs, other beetle larvae that are gonna be down on the ground. They tend to be fairly large, 1/4 of an inch to an inch long, it just depends. And just like some lady beetles, the adults and the larvae are gonna be predators. So they're very diverse, but they have this kind of general look. True bugs, I know everybody is probably familiar with true bugs. True bugs is another huge group that includes a lot of our worst pests as well as a lot of great predators. So true bugs, the family Hemiptera order Hemiptera includes things like whiteflies, aphids, scale insects, mealybugs, and stink bugs, which we were all like, those are the worst pests. Like that's what we're trying to combat. But also tons of predators. So we've got soldier bugs, which is sort of a type of stink bug. It's a pentatomid, which is the same family as stink bugs, but this one has a predatory lifestyle. And it's called the spined soldier bug because it's got these wide shoulders. They kind of look like 80s shoulder pads. I don't know if y'all remember the 80s, you're probably too young. With these like sharp points. So that's how you can tell this guy. There's lots of assassin bugs of lots of different shapes and sizes and colors. Minute pirate bugs are very small. You can see this one's using its stylet to pierce some kind of egg. And these guys will bite us. Like, I don't know if you've ever been out in the garden and you're like, ow, and you look down and there's a teeny tiny little black, like oblong bug. This happens to me all the time. It's these guys. I don't know what they're trying to do, but they're biting us for some reason. And big-eyed bugs, I don't know how well you can see it, but they do have big eyes. And this one's feeding on some other kind of hemipteran. But if you remember, if you were in a Master Gardener training, you might remember hemipterans have piercing sucking mouth parts. So every insect in this order has piercing sucking mouth parts. So their mouth is shaped like a long pointy sword, essentially, sword/straw. And they can use that to pierce whatever their niche is. So if they're a pest, they're probably using that stylet to pierce plant material and suck out the cell contents from the plant, which is why they're pests, because they're feeding on our plants. However, if they're a predator, they're gonna be using that stylet to pierce other insects or eggs. This one's feeding on a corn rootworm, I think, and suck out the contents of their body. So they all have the same types of mouth parts, they're just using them in different ways. I don't know if y'all appreciate flies as much as me. I did my master's research on flies, so I'm a little bit biased, but they are so cool. They are amazing flyers. The first category is hover flies and flower flies. These are in the family Syrphidae. They might be called syrphid flies in some publications. But they look like this, and they like to hover around. You'll see them vibrating over a flower, and then they zip away. And then they vibrate over here, almost like a hummingbird. And a lot of them have this warning coloration because they mimic bees and wasps. There are lots of ways that you can tell a fly from a bee and a wasp. I won't get into it, but I encourage you, if you're interested in telling the difference, to get involved with the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. They will teach you the difference. But they mimic bees and wasps so other insects don't mess with them. But you'll see them just hovering in midair. They're very small, and they'll feed on small, soft-bodied insects like mites, aphids, things like that. Robber flies are kind of like the top of the food chain. These guys are big. A lot of people mistake them for wasps. I get like at least 5 or 6 emails a year where people are like, what is this wasp I found? And it's a robber fly. They have this elongated abdomen. They're quite large. They, maybe 1 inch or 2 long. And I say they're top predators because they don't discriminate just on pests. They're going to be feeding on other predators as well, or parasitoids, whatever they can capture in midair. They're aerial predators. But that's okay. We want as many of these trophic levels, as much complexity and diversity in the environment as possible, so we'll take any type of predator. Long-legged flies, has anybody ever noticed these? They're very small. Yet you've seen them before? You would never know that this is a predator, right? They're tiny, and you'll see them perched on the surface of a leaf like catching sun. And you notice them because they're this metallic blue-green color, and they really shine. They've got long, skinny legs, this like skinny, tapered abdomen, and just like our hoverflies, they're gonna be feeding on mites, aphids, white flies, like very small, soft-bodied stuff. We also have tachinid flies. This is the family Tachinidae, so it's got lots of different species of flies, but in general, they kind of look like house flies. And these guys are parasitoids, so it's not just wasps that are parasitoids. Other insects have evolved this type of strategy. And so what these flies do, the adult will lay their eggs in or on caterpillars, grubs, earwigs, grasshoppers, true bugs. There's a tachinid fly that's a parasitoid of Japanese beetles. So if you've ever seen a Japanese beetle with like a couple white spots stuck to it, those are tachinid fly eggs that the female has laid on the outside of that beetle. So this one species of tachinid fly is not going to parasitize all these different types of insects. The different types of tachinid flies are going to be specialized to one type of insect. So they're highly evolved together. And just like the wasps, the adults are going to be feeding on pollen and nectar. So they're going from flower to flower, doing our pollination for us. All right, I've got some like catch-all categories. We've got lacewings. I'm sure that y'all have seen or heard of lacewings. Anybody? We've got two big categories here in Georgia, green and brown. These are different families of lacewings. Really creative names, green and brown. But the adults are actually not predators. They are just going around feeding on pollen and nectar. The larvae are predators. These guys are generalist, sort of powerhouse predators. This one is feeding on some whitefly nymphs, probably on the underside of a leaf. And some people call them aphid lions. They have that nickname. So they are very voracious predators. So when we promote lacewings, or when we release lacewings into the environment, what we're trying to get to is this larval stage. And has anybody ever seen lacewing eggs? No. Okay, this is another one where now that you've seen it, you're gonna see them in the landscape. Any thoughts about why they're perched on these long, skinny stalks? Any ideas?
Keep them cool.
Keep them cool, that's an idea. Not the one that they've proven in science yet. Any other ideas? Why would they want to be off of this leaf surface? Exactly, to keep them away from predators, particularly ants. So ants love eggs. I don't know why I don't have them in this presentation, but so this is a strategy that is unique to lacewings, where they have evolved to lay their eggs on the ends of these long stalks to keep them away from. Like a half an inch, maybe? Yeah, so they're very small. But you'll see them now if you're looking close. If you're looking for insects like me, you will see them. Okay, we've got some others. Mantids, of course. We have like, I don't know, four to six species of mantids in Georgia that I know of. Some are introduced, some are native, but they're all generalist predators. So they're ambush predators. That's the word I was trying to think of earlier. They lay in wait, camouflaged with the environment for something to walk by, like a grasshopper, and then they reach out with those super powerful arms and grab them. But they'll kind of go after everything. They're similar to the robber flies, where they might be eating another predator. But it's okay because, circle of life. If you live near a pond or a body of water, you might see a lot of dragonflies and damselflies. They are related. Dragonflies are real thick, sort of, and damselflies have these long, skinny abdomens. Also, dragonflies hold their wings out straight, and damselflies put them behind their back when at rest. But they are amazing aerial predators, just like our robber flies. And dragonflies and damselflies are unique because they can move all 4 wings independently when they're in flight. So that makes them super agile in the air, very nimble. Spiders, not insects. I was wondering if somebody was going to call me out. But they are really notable predators in the landscape, so I wanted to highlight them and their different cool strategies. So up here is a green lynx spider. This is also an ambush predator, so it's camouflaged like it's a leaf or like it's a flower. Oftentimes you see them on flowers, and it's waiting for like a bee to come around or whatever it can catch. Jumping spiders, of course, they are what we call saltatorial predators. They jump onto their prey. And then garden spiders. I'm sure that many of you have seen these giant garden spiders, and for some reason they sneak up on you, like they're huge, but they'll be right in front of your face all of a sudden. And their strategy is they build a web to capture prey. So lots of different cool strategies for capturing prey. Okay, let's talk about some ways that we can conserve natural enemies in the environment. So just like us, natural enemies are living things, and they need some basic things for survival. They need food, water, and shelter. They probably need to like find mates and some other stuff, but these are the basic things that will keep them in a landscape. So in terms of food, we want to provide them with prey, whether it's prey or host insects. There needs to be some sort of prey insect in the landscape. So this is my PSA for you not to completely nuke your landscape of bugs, because you're going to lose all of your natural enemies as well. So don't freak out if you see a couple caterpillars. It's okay to have a low populations of pests in the environment because they are the food that's supporting our natural enemies. As long as they don't surpass that threshold where you can't tolerate it for whatever reason, then it's good to provide that food source. We also want to provide pollen and nectar. You know, a lot of these adults are predators or parasitoids simply to provide for their offspring, and they are only feeding on pollen and nectar in their adult stage. So what we can do is plant flowering plants, which is very nice. We can plant flowering plants as early in the season as possible into as late in the season as possible. The goal is to get as year-round with something blooming as we can, but anything flowering in the landscape will be good. We like to promote native plants because they're low maintenance. They are suited to our fauna here in Georgia. So, you know, I got these examples from the State Botanical Garden of Georgia's website. They will post a list of different recommended pollinator plants and native plants every year. So if you want something blooming in spring, you've got red hot poker. There are red ones, I think. Bottle brush, which are beautiful. Tons of other spring blooming stuff. Summer, we've got things like zinnias and coneflowers, echinacea and rudbeckia. In fall, we've got things like goldenrod, which is one of my favorites, and it's blooming right now, so gorgeous. New England asters. So if we can deliberately choose plants that bloom from as early in the spring as we can get it to as late in the fall as we can get it, then that gives something for our natural enemies to eat as close to year-round as possible. We also want to provide water if we can. We often don't think like we need to provide water for insects, but they do need water. If you have a bird bath, you can put like a rock in the middle, and that provides a place where insects can hang out, and it's pretty shallow and they can get to water. Bird baths are a lot of work, like you have to clean them out a lot. So even just like a rock in the landscape that's gonna collect a little bit of water after every rain will be a source of water for insects. Has anybody ever seen butterflies doing this thing called puddling, where they hang around a big puddle somewhere? It's very cool. It's like magical to see a bunch of butterflies hanging around together. So they're drinking water, but they're also drinking up minerals that have dissolved from this rock into the water that's resting on the rock. So we're providing them like some other cool nutrients and minerals. And then shelter is a big one. Insects need shelter to do things like reproduce, overwinter, which is just hibernating for insects. Just like get some rest during the day. They can't fly around all day long, you know. get away from the elements, things like that. So things that we can do to provide shelter include leaving hollow stems from plants. So if we have annuals or we have perennials that die back every year that produce like thick hollow stems, rather than pulling them out or completely cutting them down, we can leave like 6 inches to a foot of these stems, which are basically tubes that lots of different insects will go in and lay their eggs, or they will overwinter inside of there. We can leave log piles. They create sort of a warm microclimate during the winter, and they're decomposing very, very slowly, which also releases some heat. So this, even if it's only like a half a degree or a quarter of a degree or something, that provides a little bit of warmth for natural enemies in the landscape. Again, rocks are good for insects that want to get some sun and heat up. Insects are cold-blooded, so they need to heat up with some sun. Bare ground or mud is actually very helpful for insects. With the mud-daubing wasps, they go around and they collect mud to create their nests, but lots of ground nesting insects as well. So if we cover everything with plants or with mulch or with leaves, we sort of miss out on a lot of nesting sites for natural enemies. So if we can leave an area of bare ground somewhere, like maybe you have a shady spot where turf grass won't grow, and it's not in a place where it's disturbing your aesthetics of your landscape, maybe just leave it like that, and some insects will take advantage of that. You might be like, I want to put up an insect hotel. I've heard about these, or I saw them on Pinterest or whatever. They are great. They provide cavities where insects can nest, but there are some caveats that I want to share with you. When we put this many nesting sites in one area, it becomes a breeding ground for disease, potentially. The risk is higher for disease. And it's almost like a buffet for our top predators, like our robber flies, our mantids that just like hang out, since we're concentrating all these insects in one place. You also need to clean them or replace them at least once a year just to cut down on disease issues. So they are a little bit high maintenance. They will provide great nesting sites for insects though. And I put this picture on here because it shows good structural complexity in the landscape. And when I say that, I just mean lots of different heights and shapes and textures of plants and other materials in the landscape. So in this picture, they have overstory trees. They have understory trees. They've got shrubs. They've got smaller herbaceous plants. They've got some flowering plants down here. They've got a grass. They've got like a ground cover. So this is providing tons of space for insects to mate, get shelter, lay their eggs, forage for prey, whatever they just do in the environment. This is providing lots more space for them to do that. So we always want to aim for structural complexity in the landscape. Many of you probably have heard you can buy natural enemies online and just release them. Like you can buy lacewings, you can buy ladybugs that are commercially produced for you to release. That is fine. Also some caveats to share with you. These insects are reared in a lab under laboratory conditions, which are stable, room temperature. So when we release them in Georgia, which is like crazy, a lot of them are just gonna die right away because they're not acclimated to the environment and they don't have a huge capacity to acclimate. So a lot of them are gonna die. Also, if you're releasing like 100 lacewings or like 200 lady beetles in one area, it's probable that you're not gonna have enough prey in that area to support that many predators all at once. So a lot of them are just gonna fly away and they're not coming back. You will retain some in your landscape, but in general, I think it's a more sustainable strategy, both environmentally and economically, so you're not paying for these insects, to try and attract existing natural enemies to your landscape with the things that they need. So food in the form of prey and flowering plants, water, some sort of water source, and some sort of shelter, because they are out there. If we can just give them a haven where they're getting the things that they need, then they're gonna be retained in that space and give you the pest management benefits that you want from them. Okay, I want to do our temp check one more time. And let me check our time. Okay, we're doing good. Are there any other more words that come to mind now that you've seen like a lot of pictures of bugs or heard about all their creepy things that they're doing? Resilient. Resilient, I love that. We're always looking for resilience in the landscape.
Useful.
Useful. Definitely, we can use them. I mean, we can take advantage of the things that they're already doing for our benefit as well. Any other thoughts?
Fascinating.
Fascinating, I think so too. And don't humor me, I want to know what you really think.
They're complicated.
Complicated, yes, very complex. And that sort of goes back to the resilience piece. We know that the more diverse and complicated the system is, the more resilient it's going to be, which is cool. Any other feelings coming up about insects?
They defoliate some plants.
Yes, they do. Defoliators. Okay, last chance. All right. I think that y'all were already a little predisposed to liking insects, which is cool. I'm not complaining. Again, my name is Gabriella Torra. Feel free to scan this QR code if you want to get in touch with me or see what we're doing in Fulton. Coweta has an amazing extension program, so I know that y'all don't have to come to Fulton, but just to see what we're doing over there. Feel free to call me or email me with any bug questions. Stephanie Butcher, who is your extension agent here, is much, much more experienced than me, but I just love to get bug photos. So if you want to just send them to me, that's fine too. But feel free to reach out to me. I'm a resource to you as well. And I put these pictures here because for some reason, little tiny wasps like to land on me places. And I just let them hang out, you know, drinking up sweat on my finger. So these were 2 separate occasions where a little tiny wasp landed on me and I was like, yes, cool. I would love to take some questions, and then I know everyone has sort of death by survey, so I have a different type of survey that I want to take, and I'm going to put it up like maybe, can I put it on those, the doors over there? So when you're heading out, I'm going to give you some stickers. I want you to stick some stickers in these boxes about where you're most likely to conserve natural enemies, or if you're not likely to at all, that's fine. So I'll go put these over here. And yeah, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Life cycle on a lot of these.
Let me take your question after this gentleman. Thank you.
Heavily profile is saying it's got 100 wasps on it. It is covered with 40 double-banded scolded wasps or blue-winged scolded wasps, day in and day out for what seems like weeks at a time.
Uh-huh.
Why are they focused on that one flower?
What kind of plant did you say it was?
Cutleaf coneflower.
Cutleaf coneflower. Okay, so the question was, why does this cutleaf coneflower have a ton of wasps attracted to this one type of plant? I don't have the answer for you, but they like it for some reason. Either their biology, their morphology, the shape of their body is suited to the shape of that flower, because we know that insects and plants interact, they evolve together. That's why we have flowers, to attract insects. And so maybe the wasps are able to get to the pollen and nectar easier on the coneflowers. Is that a native species?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
So, you know, blue-winged wasps. Who else did you say? Scoliid wasps?
Double-banded scolded and the blue-winged scolded wasp.
So they are native species, so it's likely that they have evolved with this species of flower. And so they're just suited to each other. The flower is shaped the way it is to attract those insects. So it just works. That's my guess.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
No, it's just a life cycle. Is it more prone to have them mating at a certain time of the year, or when can we expect to see the most activity there?
Okay, so the question is, when do you expect to see most mating and reproduction activity in natural enemies as a whole?
Yes.
It depends. It depends on the species and the type of insect, but generally earlier in the year, early summer and late spring are going to be sort of the hot time for egg-laying behavior. Not always. Some insects will lay eggs in the fall, which the eggs overwinter and don't hatch until the next season. Some lay eggs and then they hatch into larvae and the larvae overwinter. It depends. There's so much diversity, but in general, you'll see a lot of insect activity in the late spring, early summer. This year, I saw a ton of blue-winged wasps flying around like a month ago. And I didn't really know anything about blue-winged wasps, and so I looked them up, and it turns out that they are parasitoids of Japanese beetles as well. And so the Japanese beetle grubs were out, like they were out. And so that's why the blue-winged wasps were flying around, because they go around, locate the grub, and they lay their eggs inside of the beetle grub. So you'll see a sort of match between a parasitoid and its host. Depending on what life stage, it's going to parasitize the host.
On a lot of the pictures of the insects, that the insects pictured were, the information came from like Colorado State University.
Uh-huh.
How prevalent are those insects here in Georgia?
Good question. Okay, the question is from the pictures that I had in the presentation, a lot of them were from Colorado. How prevalent are those around here? I tried to pick insects that we would see around here, and maybe we don't see those specific species, but we might see a related species around here. Like, I might, I don't remember that picture of the mantid. I might have just picked a picture of a mantid because that was like a good looking one where it was feeding on something. So we might not see that species, but mantids generally, you can pick out a praying mantis from another type of insect. So it just depends. The reason a lot of those were from Colorado is because Whitney Cranshaw was an entomologist at the University of Colorado, I think. Maybe not Colorado State, I can't remember. But she wrote a book called Garden Insects of North America. I don't know if y'all have ever seen that book. If you're interested in garden bugs, that is like the best book. It's a little bit outdated with the pictures, but the bugs are, you see them everywhere. Like that's my first reference when I want to identify a bug. Very user-friendly book. She took all of those pictures in that book and put them on UGA's like insect images website. So she has more images on that database than anybody else, and she was from Colorado. So good eye. Yes, sir.
You may have covered this, and I might have missed it, but do the solitary wasps, especially the mud dogs, do they have stingers? And if they do, are they active users?
Good question. Do the solitary wasps, like mud daubers, have stingers, and can they use them? So in all insects, if they sting with a stinger, the stinger is the ovipositor. It's the egg-laying organ of the insect. Because of that, only female insects can sting you. We're not talking about biting insects. That's a different thing. They're using their mouths. But things like wasps and bees that will sting you, only the females can sting you. Males can't do anything because they don't lay eggs. They don't have that organ. With solitary wasps, so it's only going to be the females. Some species you can tell the males and the females. I don't know about mud daubers. Some are like really easy to tell who's a male and a female, so you know who to sort of like be wary against. Yes, they can sting you most of the time, but they're just very, very unlikely to do so because they're only interested in capturing prey, feeding on pollen and nectar, and getting back to their larvae or their eggs that are in the hole that they built somewhere. And they're not willing to sacrifice themselves or take the risk of stinging you and getting killed because nobody's going to take care of their offspring except them. So they're really just interested in foraging, but yeah, I mean, they can sting you. But usually only wasps will sting you if you like squeeze them. So if you're sitting at your picnic and one lands on the arm of your chair and you put your arm down, it gets squeezed, then it's likely to sting you. But it's that like squeezing action that will often trigger them to sting you for some reason. But if they're just buzzing around and you kind of swat at them, probably they're just gonna fly away. Yes?
Lady
just now with the cooler weather, are they looking for shelter? We always get ladybugs inside of our house. And of course, they die. I try to get them outside, but they won't usually die. But it's just because they're looking for shelter.
Exactly. You nailed it. The question was, when you get a bunch of ladybugs in your house, are they looking for shelter? And generally, are they looking for shelter at this time of year? And yes. Once the temperatures start going down and the photo period, the amount of daylight is getting reduced, something in their biology is like, I need to find somewhere to like be cool over the winter. A lot of insects just die at the end of the year. My guess is with lady beetles, especially the multicolored Asian lady beetle, they're looking for shelter, somewhere to overwinter.
So I must have a lot of ladybugs in my yard because I get a ton of ladybugs.
Exactly. Yep, you have a very ladybug-friendly yard, which is good.
Did you bring that little guy with you?
I must have, my friend. Anybody else? Yes.
Just any thoughts on, say, fire ants? I just was picking a garden, over a garden the other day, and fire ants all over the blossoms, and I'm just wondering, is there any redeeming value in them in your garden, or I don't know.
The question is there any redeeming value to fire ants? And I guess, are they natural enemies?
Something to kill.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know. Ants are also sort of like most are predators. They're going to be feeding on soft-bodied stuff like mites, whiteflies, scales, which are, kind of stuck in one spot. Some of them are not predators. And there's just so many species of ants, and they all look the same. I don't know. So I would have to get back to you on that. Does anybody else know?
No, I read somewhere about ants never sleep. Was that right or wrong?
I don't know the answer to that either. Most insects don't really sleep. They don't have like a big centralized brain like us that needs to rest. Their brain is like split up into little sections throughout their body. They have like nerve centers throughout the body. So they don't have like one big brain in their head. So because of that, they don't need to like rest like we do. But they might sort of power down and like hang out on a plant for a while. But I mean, I never see them resting. They're always doing something, biting me. All right, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gabrielle, that was fascinating. And I know, I found Gabrielle on YouTube, like a webinar. So if you want to hear more, just search for her on YouTube. There was at least one program, I know.
Yes, thank you.
It may be under North Fulton County.
Yes, the North Fulton Master Gardeners hosted me in their webinar series.
But it's really, really good.
Thank you.
I've never met her before, but that was fantastic.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on to some door prizes, and remember,